Our first task will be to look at our understanding of knowledge. We need to make clear just what we mean by knowing if we are to properly judge the demands made by the skeptic and to answer some of the defences made for the occult tarot. In the past, there have been two schools of thought with regards to how we may have knowledge: rationalism and empiricism. These days there seems to be rather less partisan thinking about them, with philosophers accepting that there is something to be said for both schools. So let's look at what they are and what they claim. Knowledge that is a priori is obtained by reason alone, and is the product of what we call deductive reasoning, where the conclusion of an argument is necessarily true if and only if it is entailed by the premises of the argument, which we call validity, and if the premises are actually true, which we call the soundness. Probably the best example of this is mathematics. Of course, in the spirit of all great detectives, we might employ deductive reasoning on premises that are empirical observations and which, as we shall see, can never be certain. We may wish to think of this as an overlap between the two kinds of knowledge. Deductive arguments are scrutinized by applying the laws of logic, and it is worth saying something about them. The laws of logic are absolute. They are not our logic as opposed to someone else's, nor are they in any way arbitrary. The laws of logic are laws presupposed by the existence of language, any language. At its most basic, the study of logic is the study of what can be meaningfully said, and its laws apply to all languages. Without these laws, languages cannot carry meaning and serve communication. Knowledge that is empirical is obtained through observation. Empirical claims, not just in science but also your knowledge of where you live and even what you look like, are based on what is called inductive reasoning. A very simple example of this might be that I observe all the swans I can and find that all of them are white. I therefore conclude that all swans are white. Of course, then I discover Australia and find black swans. And this is the problem with inductive arguments. They are not valid, by which we mean their conclusions are not entailed by their premises. When we talk of empirical knowledge, we are using the term in a very different way from rationalism. Empirical knowledge is open to revision, and what we mean by knowing is what we have overwhelming reason to believe. While we can never prove an empirical proposition, we can try to falsify it with observation, and we can apply statistics to our observations to determine the probability that they occurred by chance. We actually do this to some degree on an everyday level, but in science these principles are applied with a strict methodology and precision. What both types of knowledge have in common, that which qualifies them to be called knowledge, is that they can both be tested. In the case of a priori knowledge, we examine the arguments for soundness and validity, while for empirical theories we test them against observation. But what if a proposition cannot be tested? In such a case, we tend to describe the proposition as unscientific, and the importance of this is that if we cannot test it, then we cannot form any positive reason to think it true. Various responses to this account of knowledge have been made by advocates of occultism, and while they are by no means representative of all or only occultists and diviners, four in particular are worth brief mention.